when you first watch it, you're looking at all these people on the island. You want to root for everyone. And now rewatching it as a jaded 36-year-old man, I will tell you, every person on that island is a piece of shit.
Today, Mark and I are talking about the OG kaiju in Godzilla Minus One.
We take a look back on the first 3 seasons of Lost.
And then we see where else the conversation takes us.
Quick shout out to our channel members. Thank you so much for being a part of this. We truly thank you from the bottom of our hearts.
Now, let's get into the episode. Recently, we kind of talked about post-apocalyptic media, literature, and how there was a big rise after like the Cold War. And then I think that it still continued on even after that was no longer a fear. The people that grew up with that literature kind of continued to tell some of those stories, even though it didn't necessarily have the same kind of relevance. The interesting thing about the movie that I watched this week is that it's in a kind of a similar position, but a different genre. So I watched a foreign film.
Oh, big surprise. Oh, Sterling the auteur watched something in not his native language. Go on.
This one was a Japanese film. So what I watched this week was Godzilla Minus One.
Oh, I've been wanting to watch it.
It's on Netflix.
Okay.
And the interesting thing about this is that Godzilla, the original movie, came about after World War II. It was, after the literal bomb had been dropped on them, they lost the war, this devastated country at their absolute bottom. It was a story that arose from that. And then I think that over time, the Godzilla stories just kind of went off that first Godzilla story and didn't necessarily continue to have that historical context and that same kind of meaning that the first one did. Mm-hmm. Especially, I think, the US remakes, I think, have none of that kind of original context, none of that kind of original meaning. It's just kind of like, oh, giant monsters are cool. This would be fun to see how they can devastate an area.
I haven't really seen much of the new Godzillas, and I can't remember how the newest Godzilla, how they rebooted him, the earliest, how they made an argument for how he became Godzilla. But I do remember the old 1997-ish, the Matthew Broderick Godzilla.
Okay.
They show that there's early test footage that shows nuclear bombs being dropped on islands.
Yes.
That create, which I know it's not the historical context of old school Godzilla and the way that Japan views Godzilla, but it still had that little connection of that this was because of nuclear fallout that created Godzilla. Yeah.
Yes. But this one goes back to the original context and is in Japan post World War II. It's a failed kamikaze pilot is the main character. And it is absolutely amazing. I highly recommend this one. I'd say it's 8 out of 10 for me.
Whoa.
It was such a good story. I read that the Minus One is a reference to the idea that, World War II was the absolute bottom for them. And so an attack to come after that would be even lower than the bottom, so kind of a negative one. And
gotcha.
Seeing kind of the original context of this story, the time and place that it came from, the place that the people are in when they are dealing with this is just absolutely such a different story from what we have. And it was, in all of the right ways, it felt like such a personal story. It felt like it was much more about the main character than it was necessarily about Godzilla. And in that aspect, it kind of was a small story. So even though Godzilla is huge and the destruction that he caused is absolutely massive, it was so beautiful to tell it from this character's perspective. And it was refreshing to see somebody that wasn't your traditional hero that comes up in the Godzilla movies, you know, that like jumps into the role of the hero pretty quickly.
Sure.
It's kind of hard. I know that there are people that would throw themselves into that, maybe especially if it's, you know, somebody in like the special forces. You know, you could imagine that they've been through terrible things and they might step up, but I don't think that most people would.
You would.
I definitely would not.
No, you would. You would step up to fight Godzilla.
But it was great. Absolutely everything about it. The music, you know, the special effects, like obviously it wasn't the absolute top-notch special effects, but they were very well done. It was very well filmed, acting phenomenal. It's on Netflix, so if you want to watch it in whatever dub you want, they dub the hell out of their stuff. So if you want to watch it in English, you can. I did not. I can't personally recommend the dub. I know that I started to watch Squid Game accidentally in the dub, not realizing that it actually did have the original language. And I saw the first episode and a half in it, and it was a joke. It legitimately made me laugh in all the wrong ways. And I was like, what are people talking about? And then I figured out that it just like defaults to the dub in America in English, because it just assumes that you don't know how to read subtitles.
Right.
And
we are Americans. So, you know.
And so it's going to do the same thing with this one. It's going to default to the dub. If you are okay with subtitles, I recommend subtitles because I thought it was brilliantly acted. But if you do want to do dubs, it is on Netflix. You can do whatever dubs you want. It's
funny that you say this about the Squid Games, because that was the first thought in my mind, because I accidentally watched all of Squid Games in dub because I thought for some reason, and I didn't even check because, you know, I'm a dumb, lazy guy, whatever. I put it on, it was going, I was like, oh, I guess this is what it's supposed to be viewed in. And so I didn't even check if there was another one. And I was just like, God, this is so painful. Like, and you can tell the dub is so bad. And then I think I found out on the last 2 episodes, and I'd already gone all of it non-dub. So I was like, fuck, I'm going non-dub. And then the only thing that I do appreciate dubs over subs, and a lot of people will probably be upset with this, you can fight me in the comments, anime. I can do anime with, I think animation dubs work a little bit better than if you're watching live action with dubs. Because once the mouths don't line up, it just pulls me right out of it. It feels fake. It doesn't feel good. But if it's an animated one, I feel like you can kind of get past the mouth movement. But
there's also the voice actors in the anime world are absolutely phenomenal. It's a pretty small group, so you'll hear them over and over again in what you watch. You know, as Don as I watch something new, it's like, oh, that person is from here. That person is from here. We recognize those, but their talent is amazing. And I've watched in both. With Don, I generally watch the dub. Sometimes it's not available, and then we'll watch the subtitle. There is a phenomenal sports anime. I never would have thought I would have gotten into anything sports because I'm not a big sports person. It is Haikyuu. I started reading the manga, and the second volume of the manga, I caught myself literally laughing out loud. And at that point, I was like, okay, it's great. Like, I'm going to watch the anime at this point if it can actually get me to laugh out loud. And it's been one of the most reliable episode to episode.
Wow.
And it's not dubbed, or part of it is. We ended up just watching it subtitled, and it's great.
Interesting. I'll have to give that check. Actually, I have
That one's
too much
about
stuff.
volleyball. If I didn't say it,
You did not say it. You said sports.
Okay.
And I know as much about sports as you do. So in my mind, it could have been anything. It was polo.
well, now
Quidditch.
I might know more about sports because you learn a decent amount about volleyball
Badminton.
in that one.
See, I had no clue. Now here's the question:
Yes,
is it men's volleyball or women's volleyball?
it's men's volleyball. Although there is briefly a women's team that they kind of deal with.
I'm pro co-ed volleyball, boys and girls. Let's go.
Also, this summer I learned about or this winter I learned about curling. That's the other one that it's a pretty cool. The ice is textured. It's like pebbled.
Mm-hmm.
Because if you had smooth ice like what you would expect, it wouldn't move the same way. There's a bunch of cool stuff with curling. It's like a gentleman's sport. You call your own fouls. The ref doesn't do it. The winner buys the losing team beers.
Interesting. Is this all the same at the Olympics? Because I saw Canada cheating. I don't know if you saw that.
I did, and I'd just seen this video on like how it's a gentleman's sport, and then like that came out, and it's like, apparently
and
not
they're
everybody.
the Canadians. You would think that they would be the most gentlemanly. That's not a word.
Yeah.
The most close to gentleman-like behavior, and they're the ones cheating.
Yeah.
What are you gonna do? I mean, it was disappointing. So I know this is a little off topic, but the refs in the Olympics don't call anything. They just let the other teams. They're like, you call your own stuff.
I don't know on the Olympic level.
Okay.
Yeah.
You learned a lot about curling.
And so there's the stones. So they come from, there's one volcanic island that all of them come from. So they're all made from the exact same place, but they have sensors that can detect if you're touching them. That way you can tell if they are being, because there's a certain point where you can no longer touch them, and that's what that whole Fallout was about. Was that they touched it after the whatever line. Yeah, but I think that's on the handle is where that is, and I think they touched it somewhere else afterwards. Well, so it's like, so that sensor isn't meant to detect that. And so the light didn't immediately indicate that.
See, I don't know about the sensor, and I don't know as much about curling, but I did kind of learn a little bit when this whole cheating fiasco was going on. And I believed that there's a certain point that you can touch the handle longer if you want. Like where they were touching the rock, they could have kept touching the handle, but apparently where they were on the thing, touching below the handle is forbidden. And I don't know. I could be wrong. Don't come at me, curling champs. But curling, what a sport!
Don't throw your expensive stones you can only get from one volcanic island in the world at me.
Yeah, don't throw it at me, please. You'll only hurt your computer. Speaking of islands.
Okay.
So, what I watched is something I've kind of been watching for a bit now. I think that you and I have talked about this a lot on the show. We've brought it up a bunch. And I started watching it a little bit ago. And I have just almost finished season 3.
Okay.
And so it's a very long show, and I felt like this is a good part 1 of an analysis of this show that I watched.
Okay.
And it's been fun watching because I feel a lot of similarities to the show that we're currently talking about, Paradise, with this show.
Ooh.
And I've even told you, so the fact that you still don't even know. So I've been watching.
It's just a testament to how bad my memory is.
It's real bad.
Yeah.
So Lost. I've been watching Lost.
Yeah, I remember that.
and
Yeah.
been
That should have been
watching.
a tip off with the whole long part, because we talked about how shows used to be like 26 episodes and used to come back every single year at the same time.
I don't get it. So this is why I'm breaking it into two parts, because I'm finishing the third season and I'm
Hmm.
probably now 75 plus episodes into this show, which is crazy because they're not 20-minute episodes. They are full 43-minute episodes, hour-long episodes for commercials, and the amount of just stuff that is just in the first three seasons is crazy.
I don't know. It seems like it's not possible nowadays. Like the Harry Potter series that's coming out,
Yeah,
they're saying that they're going to do that in about 10 years. They said that they understand that people want them to come out regularly, that they don't want the cast to age up too quickly. So they
sure.
are trying to get it out quickly, but they said they will not get it out on an annual basis. And I don't know. Obviously, we're not in the industry, but I just don't understand why not.
Well, with maybe like for Lost and like Harry Potter as two sides of a coin, I do think that nowadays we have a reliance on special effects, computer generated images. Like Lost, there is a couple of those moments. There's like
Hmm.
the smoke monster, there's like a polar bear, and they're very like short shots. It's very minimal and it's very poor quality. So like that part has not aged great about the show, but I will say that the acting, the I guess if you want to call it melodrama that happens on the
Yeah, that one definitely
island,
had a little bit of melodrama.
there is a
Love
lot of
triangles and
oh god, it's like this person loves this person and sleeps with this person and does
yeah.
it's crazy because I think that if you got rid of that like melodrama between the characters and really just
Hmm.
stuck to the story, these could be 10 season or 10 episode seasons. You could just bang them out,
Right.
have like a tight story.
But the melodrama also drove some of the story, because I remember there was who was the bald guy
John
who.
Locke.
So like, and wasn't it kind of like John versus Jack, where John wanted to do things one way, and that was a big division between them about what to do. Now, obviously, that was much more plot driven. That wasn't like all this tension because I like you and you like this person and that person likes me, you know, like that kind of silliness. But the tension did kind of bleed into the non melodrama as well, in the same kind of way.
I love that John and Jack dichotomy, and it is
Yeah.
I think now that season three is coming to an end, we're losing that a little bit more because we're dealing more with the others. Also, sorry for spoilers. The show's over 10 years old, so there might be some minor spoilers here, but I don't feel bad for you because that's a very old show. But like the whole Jack and John dynamic where one is a like a believer of science and truth and what he sees what he gets, and then the other one's like a man of faith, and it's these two men that are just like very different views but both want similar
Yeah.
things. And I do think the first three seasons are the stronger of the seasons. It's also been a long time since I watched this. I haven't watched it since it aired live, I think. So I might be in for a treat and like the last three seasons, but as if I remember correctly, the show gets progressively not as good. But this, I will say, this first three seasons, there's a lot of like great nostalgia coming back of certain things I do remember, but then there's also weird things I completely forgot that were like huge pieces of the story. And I was like, how do I not remember? Like, this is so big. Why would I not remember
Yeah.
this? It's nice coming at it at a new angle. I think when I first watched it, I was in high school. Like I started it in high school and then like finished it early college. And like now I'm an older, I'm a I'm a more seasoned man and I have different
Yeah.
views on life. And I remember as a kid, because one of the big things in Lost is the dynamic between Kate, Jack, and Sawyer.
Yes.
It's, oh, does Kate like Jack? Oh, does Kate like Sawyer? Who will she choose? I don't know.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember back in the day being like, Jack all the way. Jack is so great. He's the hero. We love him. On the second watch, Jack is a wet blanket. He is nobody. He is a, like, what do you call it? Like a teacher's pet. Just some guy that's gonna follow the rules, can't go against the grain. Everything has to be where it's supposed to be. And Sawyer is a real human being who just had some shit thrown on him, and he doesn't take shit from all these strangers. And he's not gonna be like, oh, we're all just happy go lucky, we're on an island trying to survive, we're all best friends now. He's honest and he's real.
Yeah.
And I like Sawyer a lot more now. This go
Man.
around.
I'd be curious what it would be like to watch this with somebody, with like a younger person who grew up with today's TV, because I have a feeling that if you've removed the nostalgia and you have that just long length, that it might feel like, come on, let's get to the point. Stop stretching it out, stop filling it. I could be wrong. They could come out as phenomenal TV. It's just interesting sometimes going back and seeing things that you are personally nostalgic about, but through somebody else's eyes who's not nostalgic about it. Going back to kind of anime, Dawn and I are watching Trigun together. We're almost through. We have like 5 episodes left, and it's not hitting the same for her. And, she didn't watch it when she was younger like I did. And it's longer, kind of like, Lost is.
Mm-hmm.
It also has some of the earlier tropes where, anime thought that it was funny to have a little bit of like harmless perviness, which is very kind of uncomfortable in today's day and age.
Sure.
And so it's not quite the same. And if we weren't so close to the end, I would almost consider just being like, well, maybe we just stop. But at this point, we're kind of there.
Now, correct me if I'm wrong, because things could change, but at one point, this was your favorite anime. Trigun was, right? Is it still your favorite anime? Because I remember when we lived together.
I don't think it ever was my
Was your favorite?
Anime.
Okay.
Because before we lived together, I'd watched Neon Genesis, and that crushes Trigun by a lot.
Okay. I know, because I haven't gone through all of Trigun, because I know I've seen some of it when it was like on Toonami. Mm-hmm. And I remember when we lived together, you were trying to get me to watch Trigun, but it might have been because I watched Neon Genesis. And so then I think that maybe right after that, you were like, oh, you should watch Trigun. But for some reason, I thought it was your favorite. But
I also,
what kind of memory do I got?
Full Metal Alchemist Brotherhood better than
Trigun.
That, and that's from that same kind of time period of like Toonami or something like that.
Yeah,
Adult Swim something. Anyways, there are other ones that I would put above it.
Okay. Well, that's why I said correct me if I'm wrong. I couldn't remember 100%. But to go back to your point with the nostalgia and Lost, the first probably like 6 episodes are kind of difficult to watch. They are
of the series.
Yeah,
I thought that first episode was incredible. Does it not?
The first episode's pretty good, but then like the ones right after, I think it's because it feels nobody quite knows exactly how their character is. Like, you can tell all the actors are still figuring out these characters, and
Okay.
they might not be necessarily the most comfortable in the role. And the first episode's great, but then all the shortly right after episodes feel kind of low budget, or like not quite hitting there. And it's not till about halfway through the first season where everybody like knows their spots, knows what they're doing. I also think that in the beginning it doesn't really start getting those mysteries going. Like, there's a few here and there, but one thing that you mentioned that happens in Lost that we talked about outside the stream is that in every episode there's always a new, like, what is this secret? What is this secret?
Yeah.
And it's crazy because after watching Paradise, you don't get every episode as a what is this? What is this secret? What is this secret? And now think about it. Paradise is 8 episodes, and you're not getting a secret every episode.
Yep.
The seasons for Lost are 25 episodes, and every episode you get 1 or 2 secrets or new questions to be like, what is this? What is this? What is this? And it is overwhelming sometimes. The secrets. And I think that's part of why when I mentioned I forget some of the big things that happen, it's just because there's so many, like,
can't contain it all.
No. There's just too much. So it's a little rough, but I'm digging it. I'm enjoying it more, I think.
That one, I think that was the most expensive pilot at its time to have ever been filmed.
I think you're right, if I remember correctly.
It's also wild to think of putting that much money into a pilot where it's literally a test. I mean, it will be the final product, or like maybe they do some tweaks to it, but it's pretty close to the final product if they do end up going forward with it. But that's wild to me, the idea of dropping, I don't know what the number is, but dropping that much money with the idea that you may not make the rest of the show. They may watch it and be like, oh no, this isn't very good. I guess they can also do tweaks to it, because sometimes there are tweaks after a pilot. I think one of the OGs in like Full House was changed after the pilot. And so there's now the original pilot didn't air. I think they like refilmed it with like the cast that we know.
Mm-hmm.
But I think there's somebody else in there, and it's like the chemistry just wasn't there. So it's pilots don't have to be, we're gonna do it or not. Like it can be a chance to make some tweaks before you film an entire season. But it's still crazy.
Oh yeah, it's I was trying to think. I know Steven Universe has very different animation style from its pilot to when it got greenlit. I can't remember the Lost if it did any tweaks to their pilot or if they just went for it.
I don't know.
But I will say there are a few things that I feel different about, like certain characters. Kind of like I mentioned before, I was Team Jack before, now Team Sawyer. One of my favorite characters from when I was young, Charlie.
You all, everybody.
Charlie, yes. He is a terrible character.
Is he? Oh,
He's so bad. He is one of the worst people on the island.
Oh,
and that's the other thing. When you first watch it, you're looking at all these people on the island and you're like, oh, you want to root for everyone. And now rewatching it as a jaded 36-year-old man, I will tell you, every person on that island is a piece of shit. Every single one of them. They're all bad. There's no good ones. Maybe Hurley. Man. Hurley's the only good one.
Oh, okay.
But what's so crazy about that, and
that's why he won the island, right?
He does win the island. You're right.
He
does win the island.
Right, doesn't he?
I think he does.
He wins the island.
He's the only good one. But what's so crazy about his character is that like his character is just a comment on fat people.
And
it's the
just
like
a caricature.
It's just a single note that everybody like there's an episode where he's in charge of the food and people are questioning him because he's big or because he hasn't lost weight and yada yada yada, and it's always a question about his weight whenever he's around, and I'm like, that would not fly in today's day and age. It's just like shitting on somebody for their weight, and it's just really sad. And I mean the actor that plays him, as you know, he is a big guy. Like stuff's gotta hurt. You know, these constant ribbings and just, you know, it'd be one thing if it was just like the really mean characters just mean to him about his weight, but every single character brings up his weight. And it's kind of messed up. It's so messed up.
Yeah. It's a good show.
It's a good show. I'm liking it. And I will come out with a part 2 when I finish the season or finish the series, and I'll let everyone know. Is it worth a rewatch? Is it worth the first watch? I'll let you guys know.
So far you're at first 3 seasons worth it.
Yes. I would say so. I think the first 3 seasons are good. Even knowing where everything goes, I think the first 3 seasons have great setup and payoff for what they're trying to do. I do think we're going to get some weird, I remember some weird things that happen down the line, but first 3 seasons are pretty tight, solid, good writing. I think what I like about it the most is that, kind of like Paradise, it has the flashbacks to give you a little bit more context of the character.
Flashbacks, flash sideways, flash.
Who knows?
Forwards.
We don't know.
Flashlights.
Yes. All of the above. Yeah. But they do a really good job of when you are learning something about a character, about their backstory in Lost. Something on the island is happening that corresponds to that exact story. So it gives you context for the character before and the character now and why they're doing the thing that they're doing. And so I do know that this show does get affected by the first writer strike. And so I think it's season 4, potentially. Don't quote me on it. But the writing in the first 3 seasons is very good. And I like it. I like it a lot.
Nice.
Yeah.
Nice.